Today, we're getting into some really important source material about the communication gap that often comes up in neurodiverse marriages. Specifically thinking about an NT or neurotypical wife and an ASD husband. Yeah, our goal here is really to unpack why these relationships, even when there's deep love, can sometimes feel like you're living in totally different emotional worlds. The sources we looked at suggest it's less about a lack of love and more about having fundamentally different operating systems.
Exactly. That's a great way to put it. We're talking about, the ASD partner typically operating from a place of logic, patterns, predictability. That's kind of the default wiring. Whereas the NT partner often processes things through nuanced tone of voice, that sort of emotional resonance. So they share a life, absolutely, but their experience of it can run on these parallel tracks.
Okay, parallel tracks. So if the core systems are just different, where does the day-to-day friction actually start?
The sources seem to really focus on something they call the silent storm.
Right. For the NT wife, that feeling of connection, it seems to need real emotional tuning in. Shared laughter, being truly present together. But for the ASD husband, often the time spent itself just being physically present is the connection.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see how she might ask for more connection. And he's genuinely baffled, thinking, but we spent hours together yesterday watching that thing.
That right there, that creates what the sources call the intent gap. It's huge. She might signal distress non-verbally, like a heavy sigh or pulling back a bit, but his wiring, the ASD wiring, often means he doesn't automatically register that as a cue needing a specific response.
Yeah.
It just doesn't land the same way.
Okay, so he doesn't see the signal in the way she intends it.
Precisely. And here's where it gets painful. She often assumes he sees it, but is choosing to ignore it, choosing not to care. So she feels, understandably, emotionally abandoned. And he, meanwhile, often feels completely blindsided later or constantly criticized for missing something he genuinely didn't perceive. Just confusion.
Wow, okay, so it's not just missing a signal, it's this deep misreading of why the signal was missed. It sounds like it spirals fast. How does this play into how they actually, talk to each other? The volume, so to speak.
Yeah, volume is another key concept from the sources. It's about different kinds of volume. She might communicate using emotional volume, the tone, the emphasis carries the weight. He, on the other hand, tends to process cognitive volume, the literal dictionary meaning of the words being used.
Can you give an example? Because I think this trips a lot of people up.
Sure. So let's say she says, maybe in frustration, "You never listen to me." What she likely means is, "I feel unheard right now. I feel disconnected." It's an emotional statement. But he hears the word never, a factual inaccuracy. So his logical brain kicks in to correct the fact. "That's not true. I listened to you talk about work yesterday for 20 minutes.
Oh, wow. So he's correcting the fact, but completely missing the feeling.
Exactly. She wanted validation for her feeling, maybe just as, "Oh, that sounds really frustrating." Instead, she gets a factual debate, which feels like total invalidation.
And there's also the actual literal volume too, right? The sensory divide, the sources called it, when emotions get high.
Absolutely. This is critical. When her emotional volume gets high, maybe her voice raises into stress for the ASD partner, that can trigger actual sensory overload. It's like a physical feeling of being flooded. So his reaction might be to walk away, to withdraw, needing to regulate that overwhelm. But she sees him walking away and interprets it as the ultimate rejection. See? He doesn't even care enough to stay and work through this.
But he's not thinking, "I reject you." He's
likely thinking, "I need space right now or I'm going to shut down completely." It's self-preservation, not rejection. But the impact lands as rejection.
Okay, this is heavy stuff. But the hopeful piece in the source material, it seems, is this shift in understanding that it's mismatch, not malice. That's the turning point.
That's absolutely the key insight. Once both partners can sort of grasp that, they can start to see the hidden grief underneath it all. Because there is grief on both sides. Her grief might be for the kind of easy, intuitive, emotional sharing she expected in a marriage. His grief is often this deep frustration, this feeling that he just can't get it right, that he keeps hurting the person he loves without meaning to. Recognizing that shared pain is the start of healing.
So moving from recognizing the mismatch to actually building a bridge, what practical steps do the sources suggest?
Well, first, for the NT wife, it often means learning to state needs much more directly. Less hinting, more explicit requests. So maybe not, you never pay attention, but could we have 15 minutes later where we just talk with no distractions? I need to feel connected. Reduces the guesswork.
Okay, directness. And for the ASD husband?
For him, it often involves learning some specific techniques, like what the sources call emotional mirroring. Simple phrases. Things like, okay, I hear you're frustrated, or that sounds like it was really hard. He doesn't need to feel the exact same way or even fully understand why she feels that way, but just validating the emotion itself is huge. And having agreed upon strategies for timeouts is also key. Ones that work for both letting her know he'll be back while giving him the space he needs to regulate.
So the big takeaway here seems to be these marriages aren't necessarily broken. They're just operating in two different languages, essentially. Bilingual.
Exactly. Bilingual is a great way to put it.
And connection isn't about forcing sameness. It's about putting in the effort to translate consistently.
Precisely. Love is usually there. It just needs reinterpreting, finding a shared language. Which leads to maybe a final thought for you to consider this week. If you find yourself in these cycles of frustration with your partner, neurodiverse or not, try to pause. Strip away the blame for a second and ask yourself, what's the real raw emotion underneath that frustration? Is it sadness, fear, feeling overwhelmed? What would you name it truly?
Would you like to schedule a paid private coaching session? This will be in the form of a face-to-face Zoom call. Underneath any of my videos, you'll see this Calendly link. If you click on that link, it'll open up my calendar. You can pick the available days and times that works for your schedule. You'll get a follow-up email immediately after purchasing a session that will have the Zoom link that coincides with the day and time that you picked. I will get an email too that you scheduled a session, and I will be available on that exact day and time, and we will talk. I look forward to working with you.